Hello, music fans. May 2025 has come to an end, so it's time to give you my 10 favorite albums that came out in metal, rock, and prog. If you like that type of music, you've come to the right place. Hit that like button if you like this list, and hit that subscribe button if you want to stay in the loop on my favorite videos or favorite albums of every month, as I post a video on this every month. And every week I post my first impressions of new albums that came out this week. So, without further ado, I'll start with a few honorable mentions. Just a couple honorable mentions here. An honorable mention for Joviak with their album Autofiction Part 1, Shards, and for Yuka and Chronoship with their album Ribbon Butterfly. Joviak is progressive metal, and Yuka and Chronoship is a progressive rock band. And now let's jump into my top 10 proper here, starting with number 10, which is Magic Pie and their album Maestro. This is symphonic progressive rock music. Check out the track Somebody Else's Wannabe for a preview here. Maestro is the sixth album by Magic Pie. They're a Norwegian band, and it's the first album of theirs that I've heard. The early release single I heard, called Name It to Tame It, is a great track. That's what made me check out the album. The album starts with an 18-minute prog epic called Opus Imperfectus Part 1, The Missing Chord. That's an amazing track, a great way to start the album. The vocals are well done, catchy and powerful. Composition is excellent. There's soft parts. There's surprisingly heavy and crunchy guitar riffs too, bordering on hard rock and metal in that track. Some parts make me think of Deep Purple, but even heavier and proggier. And the whole album flows like it's meant to be listened to in one go. In particular, I love the transition between the song Kiddo and Someone Else's Wannabe. If that sounds good to you, check out Maestro by Magic Pie. At number 9, I've got Vildhjarta with Der Skogen Stunder under evighetens granar. Forgive me for my Swedish pronunciation there. This is progressive metal, kind of gent, or they call it thal, with deathcore, post-metal influences in there. This is the third album by Vildhjarta. They're a Swedish band, and the album title here means Where the Forest Sings Under the Eternal Spruce Trees. I thought their last album was very good, and I knew they have a lot of talent. I thought they could outdo themselves here, and they did. I think this is better than their last album. And I've heard people call this sound and genre thal, so I think thal is like an even more extreme version of gent, really low down-tuned guitars, syncopated riffing with harsh vocals, a lot of weird, crazy guitar noises, but also the odd melodic vocal part to contrast from the mostly harsh vocals on this one. I think this album is similar to their last one, but a bit of a step up. They've added more clean vocal hooks, I believe. And my main critique is it all starts to kind of sound samey, but I could say the same thing about Meshuggah, and they're still great. Meshuggah is to gent what this Vildhjarta band is to this thal sound. So if you want to hear some of that, definitely check this out. At number 8, I've got Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. A terrible band name, but they released a great album called Carpe Diem, Moonman. This is psychedelic rock with progressive rock, space rock, math rock, stoner rock, even some punk rock and alternative rock influences in there. Check out the track Quick Math for a preview. That's QWIK space MAFF. Kind of like quick math, but said with a speech impediment. Quick Math. And this is the 7th album by this Australian band. I thought their last 2 albums were very good. I think this one is even better than their last 2. If you're a fan of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, I think you'll like these Crumpets. Another Reincarnation is a great energetic album opener with great heavy bluesy stoner rock riffs. The riffs remind me of Queens of the Stone Age, but the vocals remind me of King Giz. And Quick Math has some great math rock style guitar playing and is my favorite track. Weird World of Woke and Scapegoat are also tracks that I really enjoy. So just banger after banger on this album. Carpe Diem, Moonman by Psychedelic Horn Crumpets. At number 7, I've got Novelists with their album Coda. This is progressive metalcore, kind of genty, has alternative metal and pop influences here. Check out the title track Coda for a preview of what this album sounds like. This is a French band, and it's the 5th album by Novelists, and it's just really great metalcore. It's really catchy, it's accessible, while still being impressive technically and progressive. Great female vocals from Camille Contreras, great clean vocals, catchy chorus hooks, and great intense growling screamed vocals with amazing breakdowns that you could just headbang to. So if you want to hear that, check out Coda by Novelists. For fans of bands like Red-Handed Nihil and Spirit Box. At number 6, I've got Rivers of Nihil with their self-titled album. This is progressive metal with technical death metal influences. Check out the track House of Light for a preview of this. This is the 5th album by Rivers of Nihil. They're an American band, and I thought their last album was excellent. The singles I heard from this were too, so I expected more greatness. Their lead vocalist from their previous albums, Jake, is no longer in the band. Their bass player, Adam Biggs, stepped up to do lead vocal duty to do the harsh vocals. Then they got Andy Thomas, formerly of Black Crown Initiate, on rhythm guitar doing backing vocals. This album focuses even more on catchy choruses and clean vocals than what they did before, with some tracks being so anthemic they reminded me of Killswitch Engage choruses. I'm not sure if I like it better than their last album, The Work, but it's very close to that in quality. It's very well done. They still retain some of that technical death metal brutality of bands like Archspire and Obscura, with the progressive leanings of bands like The Faceless and Black Crown Initiate, but they've added this new dimension of catchier choruses and hooks that make them more anthemic and accessible to mainstream listeners, like a band like Killswitch Engage would do. If that sounds good to you, check out Rivers of Nihil's self-titled album. At number 5, I've got an album by a band called Edensong, and the album is Our Road to Dust. This is progressive rock with some metal influences, and check out the title track of this album as a preview here. This is Edensong's 3rd album. They're an American band, and one that I've never heard any of their previous work before this. But since listening to this album by Edensong, I went back and I listened to everything they've done, and it's all excellent stuff. This is a really great band. I really look forward to hearing what they do next. The whole album, Our Road to Dust, is just excellent from start to finish. It had more variety than I expected. Some parts sounded like classic prog, like Yes, with amazing vocal harmonies. Some parts had great acoustic guitars and flutes and violins. Some parts were a bit heavier and have ripping electric guitars. The intro to the track Wickler Bass even reminded me of CAFO by Animals as Leaders, with a really fast riff in the background that's similar to that. And the bass on that song is amazing too. Just great playing from everybody, great compositions, great vibes on this album. I'm interested to hear more from their back catalog. They also employ the flute on a bunch of their tracks. So if you like Jethro Tull, some of the parts that they have with flute are really reminiscent of Jethro Tull. If that sounds good to you, check out Our Road to Dust by Edensong. Number 4, I have Pup and their album Who Will Look After the Dogs. Now, this top 10 list is going to be a little bit weird. I usually have more metal and rock, but not as much punk rock music. But on this one, this month, I have 2 punk rock albums that made my top 10, which is unusual, but this one's great. It's Who Will Look After the Dogs by Pup. It's punk rock, it's got some power pop, it's post-hardcore sometimes, and indie rock influences in there. Check out the track Best Revenge for a preview here. This is the 5th album by this Canadian band, Pup, and it was released the same day as another punk rock album that I'm going to mention in this top 10 here. May 2nd was the day for Canadian punk music releases. And they're a bit more of a technical, innovative, and progressive punk band. Not the most technical or innovative or progressive, but if you're imagining your typical like pop punk, they're a bit beyond, they're a bit above the technicality level of groups like Blink 182 or Green Day or something like that. They get a little bit more innovative and a little bit more conceptual with their themes and a little bit more technical with their playing and their composition and their writing. But they still take that pop punk approach with a little bit of hardcore influence. So if you're a fan of bands like Sum 41, Blink 182, Green Day, and Gob, imagine taking that but having this indie rock and emo influence in there. The lyrics that Pup writes are also kind of funny, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but they have a focus more on personal topics rather than philosophy and world issues. But they are one of the best punk bands going today, so if that sounds good to you, check out Who Will Look After the Dogs by Pup. At number 3, I've got an EP, I guess, but it's a long EP. It's Frontiers is the name of the EP, and the name of the band is Paradigm Blue. This is progressive rock. Check out the track Snake Bit for a preview here. This band, Paradigm Blue, is from the US. They're a very underrated band. They deserve more fans. If you're a fan of Rush, I think you'll like this. They sound like Rush if they had Tobias Forge from Ghost singing. And they're calling it an EP, but it's over 37 minutes long, so it could easily be considered a full-length album. And since it's kind of being counted as an EP, this is very likely to make my year-end top 10 EP list of the year. If that sounds good to you, check out Frontiers by Paradigm Blue. And at number 2, we have the other punk album that I wanted to mention, which is Propagandhi and their album At Peace. This is punk rock with melodic hardcore, skate punk, and some heavy metal influences too. Check out the track Fire Season for a preview here. This is Propagandhi's 8th album. They're a Canadian band. If you like bands like Choke, another amazing technical Canadian punk band, Rise Against, and Protest the Hero, because they bring in more of the metal and that prog influence into their punk. I think you'll like this. It's interesting, it's technical, it's energetic punk music. It could appeal to progressive rock and metal fans as well because it's got that metal influence and technicality and interesting compositions. And I'm a fan of the 4 albums before this as well that Propagandhi did. I've listened to all of their material as I'm a fan of this band. But in particular, the 4 album run before At Peace is my favorite stuff from them, and this continues that excellent run. I don't know if it's their best album. Currently, my favorite is Failed States from 2012, followed closely by Supporting Cast and Potemkin City Limits. Although this is rising it up there. It's definitely in my top 5 by them, but it might be in my top 4. It might even crack into my top 3 at some point. I'm not sure. Excellent album. I'm not as much a fan of their earlier works. Their first three albums, those have more of a raw punk sound with these low budget production sound, as opposed to them getting more polished technical punk sound that they do now, which sounds great. My favorite tracks on At Peace are the title track At Peace, Cat Guy, Prismatic Spray, The Tinder Date, and Fire Season, which is my current favorite. And I also enjoy, like with Pup, their lyrics can also be kind of funny, tongue-in-cheek, while still being very serious and touching on important issues and interesting philosophical thoughts. If that sounds good to you, check out At Peace by Propagandhi. And my number one album of May 2025 is by the band Callous Daoboys, and it's called I Don't Want to See You in Heaven. This one is Mathcore with metalcore, post-hardcore, emo, and alternative metal influences. Check out the track Schizophrenia Legacy for a preview. Callous Daoboys is an American band, and this is their third album, and all of their albums and EPs so far have been excellent. The three singles I heard ahead of this album are all excellent. I knew if they could pull off another release at the caliber that they've been putting out, that they'd have to earn a spot amongst my favorite band list, which they have now earned. And getting in that list is getting very long and probably getting into the hundreds at this point. But it does still take a lot for me to put a band on that list. Callous Daoboys has the ability to be as catchy as Fall Out Boy, but also as heavy and chaotic as the Dillinger Escape Plan, and they can do both extremes very well. This album continues their excellence, and I'm going to be a lifelong fan of theirs now. I think I like every track on here, but some of my favorites are Schizophrenia Legacy, Two-Headed Trout, and Idiot Temptation Force. If that sounds good to you, check out I Don't Want to See You in Heaven by Callous Daoboys. And that's it for my 10 favorite albums of May 2025. What do you think of the albums on this list? Let me know down in the comments. Have you heard them all? Do you like them? Do you hate them? Are there some that my description inspired you to check out that you hadn't heard before? And what did you think of those if you checked them out? And what else came out in May 2025 that you really love? What's your favorite albums of the month? Let me know down below. And stay tuned for next time. In my next video, I will likely talk about new albums that are coming out on June 6th, 2025. New music from The Deer Hunter, Catatonia, Volbeat, Phase Transition, Keonashi, and Elbow. If you want to hear my first impressions of those albums shortly after they come out, hit that subscribe button to stay in the loop on when I post new videos. And stay tuned for next time. Peace out.